We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. We start this morning with sad news in Wisconsin politics, as longtime U.S. Senator Herb Kohl passed away this week at the age of 88. He represented Wisconsin in the U.S. Senate for 24 years, stepping down in 2012.
The greatest honor and the greatest responsibility of my life has been to serve as Wisconsin's United States Senator. But I have never believed that this was my Senate seat. I always knew and understood that it belonged to the people of Wisconsin.
After retiring from politics, Kohl remained the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks until selling the team in 2014. But he remained a figure for the franchise, speaking here at the opening of what was then the new Fiserv Forum back in 2018.
We've done it, and this arena is going to be here for many years. The Bucks are going to stay here for many years, so I'm a very happy man.
Now that ended up being prophetic. Just 3 years later, the Bucks won the NBA championships, and this summer, the arena will host the Republican National Convention. Now, Kohl left a lasting impression on many Wisconsin politicians. That included State Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler. We spoke with him earlier in the week.
He was a great champion of public schools, of kids, of making sure that kids have opportunity. He was the son of immigrants himself in Milwaukee. His parents opened a grocery store, and he and his brothers built Kohl's into a tremendous business success. And then he became a philanthropist, and then he ran for office. I knew him because my mom was a social worker, and Senator Kohl supported a program that my mom started and ensured that there was funding to help kids and parents connect with their schools. I knew him later as an advocate. When he was in the U.S. Senate, he was such a tremendous champion for progressive causes and for really causes that people across the political spectrum could endorse, including thinking really critically about how to use our federal budget to have maximum impact and maximum efficiency. And then when I became the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, after he had retired, he invited me to join him and his friends and colleagues for lunch. And I walked in kind of terrified of meeting with this legend. He was a former Democratic Party of Wisconsin chair himself. He'd been a chair of the state party in the 70s. And he grilled me. He had the toughest, most incisive, perceptive questions. He asked me immediately how many votes Democrats would need to win the presidential election in Wisconsin in 2020, and then challenged me to push my number higher. But he also had this huge laugh and a big smile, and his questions came from a place of warmth and generosity and calling those around him to excellence, to do the best that they could do. That was the hallmark of each chapter in his success through his amazing life. And that's a legacy that will live on in the lives of so many Wisconsinites that he inspired.
That's our conversation with Ben Wickler. Now, when we come back, it was a busy political year at the state capitol. We'll break down the top political headlines with the co-chair of the Budget Writing Committee, Howard Marklein, and new Democratic Senate leader, Dianne Hasselbein. And later, we'll hear from our top-notch political panel on what to expect for 2024. We'll be right back after this.
This portion of News 3 Now is sponsored by Madison Gas and Electric.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
Are you ready to start a meaningful career in healthcare? Are you looking for a job that fits your work-life balance? Become a certified direct care professional today and help those who need you most in your community. WIS Caregiver Careers makes it easy with free online training and a $500 bonus. See your name on Wisconsin's CDCP registry. Start your career today at wiscaregivercdcp.com.
I told myself I was okay with my moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis symptoms,
with my psoriatic arthritis symptoms.
But just okay isn't okay, and I was done settling.
If you still have symptoms after a TNF blocker like Humira or Enbrel, Rinvoq is different and may help. Rinvoq is a once-daily pill that can rapidly relieve joint pain, stiffness, and swelling in RA and PSA, relieve fatigue for some, and stop joint damage. And in PSA, can leave skin clear or almost clear.
Rinvoq can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB, serious infections and blood clots, some fatal, cancers including lymphoma and skin, heart attack, stroke, and GI tears occur. People 50 and older with a heart disease risk factor have an increased risk of death. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Tell your doctor if you are or may become pregnant.
Done settling?
Ask your rheumatologist for Rinvoq
and take back what's yours.
Avi could help you save.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
Welcome back. Within the last month, there's been a change in the Democratic leadership in the state Senate. Melissa Agard of Madison stepped down to run for Dane County Executive. Stepping up in her place, Middleton Senator Dianne Hesselbein, who spoke with her about some of her priorities. As a quick note, we sat down before the state Supreme Court handed down its decision to throw out the state's legislative maps. But we do talk about that as a possibility. Here's the conversation. So I want to get to the sense of why you decided to step up for this leadership role here.
Oh, thanks. It's an exciting year for the Democratic Party in the state of Wisconsin. With new maps, we'll have a lot of opportunities, so exciting time to serve.
Yeah, and so I know, obviously this is your first term in the state Senate, but you were in Assembly leadership beforehand, right?
I was.
What's the difference, kind of stepping from the Assembly to the Senate and then in leadership?
There's a big difference between the Assembly and the Senate, and I think, and I've told this to people in both parties, there's a real sense of belonging in the Senate, and we have some more cordial conversations in the Senate, which is welcoming. It's really nice.
So as we're looking ahead, you're obviously picking this up post-budget and kind of this transition between 2023, 2024. What are going to be some of the priorities for the new year that we're looking at?
Well, I think for the Democratic Party, we're just going to continue talking about you know, maybe I've heard the Republicans talk about a possibility of a tax break. Certainly we might be interested in something like that, a middle-class tax break. The Republicans had a plan, but that was a tax break from everybody making $30,000 to $300,000. That's not a middle-class tax break. So hoping to have those conversations and seeing if we can get somewhere.
Yeah, what would Democrats need? Or is it too early to say yet?
Too early to say, but I think we're open to having those conversations.
We've seen a rather contentious votes with the UW Board of Regents trading that DEI for DEI positions for some much needed building funding, those UW pay raises. We heard from the governor that he's disappointed in the Regents' votes. I'm hoping to get your take on what they did.
I was disappointed as well. Those raises were promised 6 months ago when Joint Finance Committee members voted on them. There's no reason they should have waited this long, and there's no reason that should be on the table when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. Those three things are extremely important to every single person in the state of Wisconsin. Every corner of the state is impacted by diversity, equity, inclusion.
That was our conversation with Senator Dianne Hesselbein. We also spoke with Senator Howard Marklein. The Spring Green Republican is the co-chair of the legislature's powerful budget writing committee. We sat down after a big budget year, starting our conversation there. Over the last year, 2023 here, any big legislative wins for you?
Well, the state budget is probably the biggest. You know, I co-chair Joint Finance Committee, and so the state budget had a lot of tremendous stuff in it. And part of that was the shared revenue package, which is actually separate legislation, but that had an incredible impact. Will have an incredible impact not only on communities in my district, but all over the state of Wisconsin. You know, when I look at the impact, you know, in my district, it's another $19 million of aid going to my cities, villages, and towns, and which is a big deal in the future. And I know my communities are very happy for that. So then, you know, in the budget, transportation was an area of focus for me, and we did a great job in local transportation. The local agricultural road improvement program, $150 million, which is a significant contribution to the improvements of those small rural town roads, and was happy for that. And in the transportation budget, we essentially didn't borrow any money. We paid cash, or paying cash for projects. We kept everything on track, which is wonderful. So I know roads are important to many people in Wisconsin, including my district.
So obviously you've done a lot of work. Anything left on the table that you'd want to maybe tackle in the new year here?
Oh yeah, we're not done. I introduced or drafted the electrical vehicle charging bill, and we had a hearing on that recently, and I'm hopeful that we can get that through the legislative process here after the first of the year. And that bill basically will permit our private sector businesses along these major travel corridors to charge for the sale of power. And so, like for our convenience stores, our hotels, restaurants. It provides them with a tremendous opportunity to sell power instead of selling, gasoline at a convenience store. They'll be selling power, and so that bill enables us to capture about $78 million of federal funds to make those improvements.
So obviously you're the chair of a very powerful state budget writing committee. For people who don't necessarily know kind of the ins and outs, who haven't been sitting through the budget hearings and all that kind of stuff, if you could describe JFC in like 3 words, for example.
Well, it's the amount of responsibility. It's amazing. The Joint Finance Committee is responsible for not only doing the budget, but also any positions, position authority, and which is a pretty big deal. Passive reviews that come before us. These are requests made by various agencies for positions or for land acquisitions that all come before the Joint Finance Committee as well. So it's a committee that we're busy. The members on that committee are very, very engaged. And when the session adjourns, we don't adjourn. We continue to meet and take action as appropriate.
So we also heard from the Assembly Speaker that there will be a tax cut introduced sometime in January, geared towards retirees to make it easier for them to stay here in Wisconsin. Do you have any details on that, or do you have a sense of whether that'll get a lot of support here?
We haven't seen any details at all, so I really can't comment on that. But one of the disappointments I had in the budget was that the governor vetoed the tax cut. So that's taxpayer money, and I'm certainly open to having discussions on a tax cut after the first of the year.
Broadly, as we're kind of going forward, do you have a sense of kind of what the tenor is like, the working relationship between Republicans and the legislature and the governor?
I know I think there's things we can agree on. The governor signed 3 of my bills recently. So there's things that we can get done that the governor will approve. Some things are probably non-starters, and I guess I would prefer that we try to do as much as we possibly can that we can get done and signed into law before the session adjourns.
That's Senator Howard Marklein. When we come back, a look back at 2023 and a look ahead to 2024 with our political panel. We'll be right back after this.
Here we go. I knew I could do it. I just had to take the first step.
Hey, how's it going? Marcus, my boy. Welcome to my humble abode. Nice to meet you.
When Marcus came to my door, it was my chance to give someone a safe place to stay for a little while.
When you open your heart and home through foster parenting, you're helping the teen write new chapters, which can positively impact the teen for the rest of their life.
Be part of the story.
For more information about becoming a foster parent, contact Children's Wisconsin.
We can't help what you do before you go to bed, but we can make sure the sleep is solid once you finally get there. And during the 4-day New Year's super sale at Denver Mattress, the more you buy, the more you save. Save $100 on every $1,000 you spend. Or purchase a Tempur-Pedic and get a $300 gift. Save up to $200 on our Denver Mattress brand lineup, plus 6 years no interest financing and free shipping. Here's to 365 nights of better sleep. Happy New Year from Denver Mattress.
Thousands of our heroes face the difficult choice between keeping their heat and power on or facing homelessness. 21,000 Wisconsin veterans are living below the poverty line, many impacted by physical or mental health challenges. Wisconsin loses 3 veterans to suicide every week. Together, our mission is to provide all struggling Wisconsin veterans with a critical survival safety net that keeps them safely in their homes. You can make a real difference by providing a donation to the Wisconsin Heat and Housing for Heroes initiative, with 95 cents of every dollar donated going directly to those right here in your community. Help by visiting www.heatforheroes.org or by calling 1-800-891-9276. That's 800-891-9276.
Welcome back. It's sure been a busy political year. We've had a Supreme Court election, the state passing a state budget, Oh yeah, and 2024 will be even bigger for us here in Wisconsin. Here to make sense of what a crazy year it's been is Ruth Conniff, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Examiner, and Brandon Schulz with the Capital Group. Thank you guys both so much for being with us.
You bet.
Good to be here.
So in celebration of the Wisconsin Old Fashioned, which is poised to become the official state cocktail, I want to ask you both your political old-fashioned news here. So we'll start with the muddle. We'll start with what is the Brandon Schulz? What is the muddle? What is a story from this past year that you'd want a little bit more clarity on?
Oh, I don't know if I want the story that I don't necessarily want clarity on is the story I wish would go away so we could move on to making this drink. I think, you know, candidates need to move on and start talking about issues. And I don't think we have a solid discussion, certainly on the presidential stage, of issues, at least in the Republican primary, because Trump's saying all the garbage that he's saying. And it makes it difficult for the challengers to come up. On the Democrat side, you know, you're watching Biden's team trying to maintain some sort of, you know, presence with the president. Coming to Wisconsin's one, Vice President Harris comes again. I would love to see this next election cycle in 24 really be spent on issues, especially the presidential side. It's natural that happens on the legislative races and in the Senate race as well, but presidentially, we need to move on. These candidates need to start talking about what they're going to be doing, and whether it's Trump and Biden or, you know, Nikki Haley and Gavin Newsom, I don't care who. But really, the kind of the banter of, you know, the election was stolen and we got this, and let's move on. Let's have people talk about issues so voters can actually use that to decide.
And for the Ruth Conniff, what's the muddle there?
I think the muddle in Wisconsin is where are we with abortion rights? We were very fortunate that a Dane County judge ruled that the 1849 ban doesn't even apply to abortion. That was a big surprise to everybody. It does not put us, you know, back in pre-Roe being overturned, you know, status. And I think this is going to be a huge issue going forward. And I think people are really uneasy, especially women voters. We just saw this unbelievable news story out of Texas where Katie Cox was not allowed to deal with a problem pregnancy where her baby was dying and she was in severe health crisis. And, you know, the Attorney General really doubled down there and threatened her doctors with lawsuits and prison time if they did anything. So this is, you know, very, very nervous making for a lot of voters, a lot of women voters, and it's going to have a big impact on the next election. You mentioned Kamala Harris is coming here. That's what she's talking about. It's the anniversary of the Dobbs decision, and it's really an uneasy time for women in Wisconsin. We had a complete ban here. We don't. Currently, this case is going to be appealed. We don't know where that's going. So I think people are in a very muddled and worried state over that, and it's going to have a big impact on politics.
All right, so now we've muddled our cocktails. We now add the liquor, the good stuff. So what would be, for example, kind of the main focus, political power player that you've been watching from 2023 that we should keep our eye on in 2024?
Well, going with the same theme, I'm going to say Janet Protasiewicz because she had such a giganto win in the state Supreme Court. But more than that, it was the voters who supported her. And it was the women who came out and said, you know, this is not the Wisconsin I know. Why I'm not okay with the way that politics are going here. It's extreme. It's, you know, limiting my freedom in a way I never imagined. And, you know, I think that that is going to be the most important issue in the next year.
Yeah, same to you.
Yeah, I think with regard to the justice on the court and the issues, it was all about money. $50 million, I don't care what the issue is. You spend $50 million, it's both sides, and they spent about 30.
Dan Kelly did not get a big bang for his buck in that.
No, he got zero bang because he wasn't a good candidate. Yeah. He was a terrible candidate, and
so it wasn't
he
just money.
And so it was money. I mean, she would not have won had it not been for the money and it not been for here's how I'm going to rule. But in 24, I think Wisconsin, at least for now, you have a sense of what the presidential race is like, unless things change in the other states' primary. I think for now we have to wait and see what happens in the U.S. Senate race, whether Republicans can get a candidate. They've certainly tried hard to get Eric Hovde to announce in December and announce early. He's going to hold till after the first year. So after that happens, then you'll likely see some sort of domino effect. If he runs, that's one course. If he doesn't, that's another. And who knows if, you know, what kind of primary there's going to be. Because right now, most of the field is set. The field is set on congressional races. It's likely set on legislative races, although that's going to be a run to the filing center the moment the court rules what the lines are, even if there's an appeal, because the legislature will finish by the end of February, early March. They have to file, I think it's early April is the deadline. So you have 30 days, and it's not just so much for the candidates, but it's for all the municipal clerks across the state, knowing where those lines are going to be, how they're going to put their ballots together. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that has to go on just to make the election work. But I think the last piece that we'll hear is the U.S. Senate race and who's in, and who's going to try and run against Tammy Baldwin.
Fascinating. So we have our muddle, we have our alcohol. Now we have to top that off with some soda, either sweet or sour, depending on how you like your old-fashioned. I'm assuming, since you already had a little sour moment there, is there like a sweet moment from 2023 that you'd like to take into 2024 at all?
No. Yeah. 23 was a really bizarre year with the Supreme Court race, and I think the money this time through, we've seen lots of money come in races for gubernatorial and other races. This race, though, not only the record that was set in Wisconsin, but the record that was set nationally and how much money was spent to get the majority, just tells you the value of that majority. They've now monetized the value of a majority on a Supreme Court. I don't care what the issue was. Issues in this case don't matter because of the way the money's spent. I will say, from a campaign viewpoint, you know, strategy and all that, that was probably the most different and well-run race that I've seen. I don't agree with a lot of what they did, but if the goal was let's get elected no matter what, that's the standard now.
Right. Same thing, sweet or a sour moment that you'd like to forget.
So, well, I talked about Katie Cox. That's the sourest of the sour. But the sweet moment, I think, was seeing Wisconsin's fake electors settle, admit that they tried to subvert the will of voters. They were wrong. They were not electors. They were impersonating electors. And admit that Joe Biden won the presidency. Here we are coming to the end of his first term, and we've admitted that he's the president of the United States. I think that's an advance for Wisconsin. I don't know why Bob Spindell is still sitting on the Wisconsin Elections Commission when he has admitted to trying to subvert an election. And I also don't know why that wasn't part of the settlement. You know, I think removing him from his role overseeing elections would make a heck of a lot of sense given his admission. But it was good to see some closure on that, all that election denying, all that nonsense about voter fraud, which is non-existent, and the idea that Trump's, you know, victory was stolen from him in Wisconsin. I mean, finally, the fake electors themselves said, no, you know, we lied.
So I want to ask you both. We all know a lot of the big players, right? Governor Evers, Robin Vos. Who would be a person that you think we should keep our eye on who we don't quite know who they are?
I'm going to say Kristen Lyerly, who's an OBGYN from up in Green Bay, who's thinking about running for Congress, and who is very well-spoken, very passionate on the issue of abortion, had to stop practicing because she had some of those patients with problem pregnancies who were in really agonizing situations, and under Wisconsin law for a while there was absolutely nothing available to them in our state. She's just a powerful speaker and a really interesting person, and I think she could really make a splash, but she hasn't announced, and we haven't seen a whole lot of her yet, so that's going to be very interesting.
I think at least in the congressional delegation and both Republicans and Democrats, there's probably only one race that has the likelihood of attention, and that's out in the 3rd District in La Crosse with Derek Van Orden, a freshman running for re-election. A couple of people have announced against him, but the fact that Brad Pfaff, the state senator, did not announce to run against him, is going for his own re-election. It was a surprise because Pfaff ran a really good race last time. I mean, if you remember, Van Orden was up by 8 or 9 points, and going into election week, all of a sudden his numbers started to go down, as did Ron Johnson's numbers. So voters started to come home after not being sure where to go. But that doesn't look like it's the case again. So I don't know that you're going to have a lot of new players on the scene. Certainly you have some challenge candidates. And even the candidates that we're talking about that potentially could announce to run against Senator Baldwin aren't necessarily new names, but you know, they're at least the newest players on the block in this election cycle. Other than that, though, you know, if Donald Trump is the nominee on the Republican side, Biden's on the Democrat side, there's nothing really new there. There's nothing new and exciting there. I think what would be interesting is whether or not the Biden campaign can redo in 2024 what they did 4 years ago, and they ran a really, really excellent strategy that they just took all the groups along the Democrat spectrum and said, we hate Donald Trump. Boom, that's all that matters. Forget all the issues, we hate Trump and you have to vote against Trump. And they held every single group to that standard and won. And it was a very well, strategy was good, it was well run, well executed. I'm not certain they can do that this time. I'm not certain that the basis amongst those Democrat groups, because you see the fracturing going on right now, can generate that sort of continued passion against Trump. You know, I don't know that there's any new flash in 24 other than who the Republicans put up to run against Senator Baldwin.
Well, we'll have to wait and see.
That's right.
Brandon Schulz, Ruth Conniff, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back after this.
Do more together this holiday in the Chevy that's right for you. The award-winning Chevy Equinox, the hard-working Chevy Silverado, or the all-new high-tech Chevy Trax. Whatever your plans are this season, do more in a new Chevy. Or qualified lessees can get this Equinox for around $269 a month. Or get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Equinox models.
The average cost of hearing aids is nearly $5,000, but now you can buy a full pair of rechargeable, wireless, nearly invisible, easy to use, and comfortable hearing devices for only $99, but only from Audient.
It's easy to use. They're small.
A pair of $99 Audient Atoms can be sold over the phone without having to see a doctor or audiologist. Call to order.
1-800-617-3809.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
This new year is the best time to try Plexiderm at our startup price of only $14.95. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Welcome back. Finally this morning, we're looking ahead to our coverage in the new year. It'll be a busy year for us here at News 3 Now. We have the national nominating conventions in both Milwaukee and Chicago, as well as big elections, even as early as April. That does it for us this week. Thanks for watching us this year and staying with us throughout 2024. I'm Will Keneally. Have a great rest of your weekend.
This has been For the Record.